guys, welcome back to season 9. As always, we are excited to be with you guys. We want to start off with a review from one of you, as we always do. This is from RJE Dad. It says, "Thank you guys so much for this resource. A few months ago, I confessed to my wife about my relationship with another woman, and a friend of hers recommended your podcast to her. Little did we know, it would be me still listening to it almost daily. Thank you guys for being authentic. Thank you, Brad, for leading us men through your testimony and for being vulnerable. Your podcast continues to give me hope that we are going to get past this storm. Thank you."
That's
and
awesome.
I think actually that we actually got to meet this person in person. I was like trying to finish the thought and it was like not working correctly in my brain. I'm pretty positive if I'm remembering correctly.
A few months ago, right? When we went to go speak
several months ago that we got to meet this couple in person, and it was so awesome. I will say if you guys ever do see us out somewhere or
come say hey.
Yeah, we want to meet you guys.
Absolutely.
I think there was one time where we got to meet a couple when we were traveling. Thank goodness that our daughter was there, or we would have just...
We didn't hear them at all.
We were getting too old. Like,
no, I don't know. Like, we were walking into a restaurant, this cool little, like, burger joint.
Yeah.
They...
Did not hear at all.
Didn't hear. And my daughter's like, hey. And I was like... And then when she tapped me, then I heard it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, cool. Like... Yeah, we're not. You imagine though, like seriously, if we didn't hear that, we just kept walking.
I know how
like, we
awful would
like
that have been.
Like, those like sucky people that think they're too good for everyone else.
No,
right? No, not at all. Like,
we want to meet you guys. We want to hear from you. I mean, I can't tell you. I know we mentioned it on here many times, but like your guys' reviews, your DMs, you're sharing a portion of your story with us, your journey, and us getting to be a small part of that journey, all because of what Jesus has done. Like that is such a big deal to us because the only reason we're doing this is because God has asked us to do these things. So it's a big deal for us to get a chance to hear from you all and to meet you. We love it. So our topic today is kind of centered, I think, or it resonated with us both because of what you're going through with work right now. So we're going to be talking about like this breaking that's required for breakthrough.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, this is just a process that never, ever stops in your life. Like this aspect of sanctification, like God is always breaking something off of us.
Yeah, it might not be this huge, monstrous piece of you, but it could end up being
absolutely.
like that, right?
And we've experienced that side of it, but also like I feel that I'm always in some aspect of my life where God is just kind of breaking off my version of what my life would look like, my version of control, my version of the way my kids should be or the way that we will be or the way that our future. I mean, God's always just like breaking things off. And I will say, I think right now it's in our parenting season where I just feel like God is continually like wrecking things out of us.
The adult parenting phase.
Oof, the adult parenting phase, man. Nobody talks about, no one is like, terrible 20s, like no not that it's terrible, guys. Please don't misunderstand. It's just the process of letting go that's so hard. And like your role as a parent changing, evolving what you're able to speak into and not speak into, control and not control, like it really radically changes. And that's this breaking off process. It's necessary. The goal is that you don't want your parents or your kids living with you like the rest of their lives.
Oh, of course not.
I mean, I feel like maybe some parents said they're like, yes, goals, right? But
no, not me.
You want to have fully like adult children that are fully functional,
them step
thrive
out into that world and have their own family. And that's, I think that's the highest honor as a parent to see that happen in a successful way and them navigate that stuff. So,
But to get to that, for sure, I feel the angst of that, right? It's just, I had watched recently with our daughter, Father of the Bride, which is just like a family favorite in our house. Yeah. And it's just kind of funny because, you know, the Steve Martin is like the main guy in there, and he is talking about this process of like, you worry about them meeting the wrong guy, then you worry about them meeting the right guy, and then like, right. And it's just like, it just keeps going. It's like those things that you know, I watched it as a young girl, you don't relate to much, and then all of a sudden as a parent, you're like, oh, yeah, totally.
And then also in that movie, they're supposed to be in their 40s. I'm like, come on.
Right?
Come on. Like, I don't know who thought of that. There's no way. Like, no, they do not. Even my kids laugh about that. They're like, what?
Maybe we just look so young. That's what it is. That's what it is. That's it right there. Yeah. Like the things we tell ourselves, right? So anyways, I think this resonated not only because of, I think, things going on in our own life, but also just what's going on with your work and what you get the kind of unique perspective of going through every year, which is watching a group of, you know, highly capable, high functioning individuals, a group of men, and watching this like breaking happening. So I wanted to ask you some questions kind of behind that. Perfect. Brad loves it. No, stroking the beard. Perfect. Ask me the questions. If you're not watching on YouTube, guys, you're missing out. Yeah. Go subscribe. So tell us kind of what that is like, just kind of watching someone go through that process of breaking, and then the why or the purpose behind it. Like, why is it that you would want to see this group of highly capable individuals just broken down?
Yeah. So first, the only reason I get to do this is because our unit runs a selection course once a year, right? And there's quite a bit of knowns. You can look it up on, I'm sure you can Google about it, you know, and see things about it. Probably not all true, but you know.
Are you going to say what unit this is? I know you've talked about it before, but
yeah. So I'm with the special operations group within the Border Patrol, and we're called Board Tech.
Yeah.
Right? So we run a selection course, 2 phases. The first phase is now, and during that first phase, we're trying to select attributes and trying to find the right person. We gather lots of data. Like, we use a whole program. Like, it's a whole thing.
So you actually get to see, not just like watching, you actually see like the data. Just, I say data, you say data. But
I know.
I feel like I'm right.
I mean, maybe you are.
Maybe I am. I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, data. Yeah. Scenario. That's exactly what you said. We also say.
We say the exact opposite on that.
Miracle. That's what Brad says. Miracle.
It's a miracle. I don't know what that sounds weird.
It's miracle.
Well, I think I'm saying it like that. So anyway, I get to see the empirical data that's on there, but it doesn't, I mean, it kind of shows them breaking, but not really. Yeah. But what it does grab is off of peer evaluations, cadre evaluations, you start seeing a trend on these people.
Seeing patterns.
Yeah, you start seeing patterns. But the process of them breaking down mentally and physically, it's very unique to see that. It really is. It's humbling to see it, you know, because I've been there. I was in their literal, you know, my course was a little different, but I was there. Same concept, right? So to see that, and then also it is like it's kind of cool to see. You know, I don't know how else to say that. It's because what it's getting at is exactly what God does with us, right? And so he probably sits back and it's like, this is going to hurt, but this is going to be cool to see this happen.
Yeah. Right? Well, because his goal is something different for us.
Yeah. So anyway, these, you know, guys put in to come to this course, they show up to the course and the course starts and as it's going, you start seeing physical breaking, you start seeing the mental breakdown and it gets late in the course and that's when, like, you know, people are frustrated with each other you know, and you start seeing for lack of a better analogy, you start seeing the cream rise to the top, you know, because as you're braking, you have a choice. And I think this is the biggest aspect. So I'll speak for myself, right? I mean, but I'm not shy about it. I was definitely braking during selection. Like that is one of the, you know, the goal is not to break people to quit. The goal is to break people to see where they're at. And I mean, breaking them by tasks and standards and, you know, conditions that are given and all those things, not like, you know, physically torturing someone, not anything like that. But I know when I went through it, there was plenty of times where I literally felt the breaking down of everything.
Yeah.
Not just physically, but like mentally, like the mental strain, the mental breaking, you know, all these things, very emotional time also. But going through that, I kind of lost my train of thought right now. Going through that is, yeah, I'm breaking right now. No, it's interesting to go through that because it's, you can't control it.
Right.
You know, you can't control when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen. Like there's no control.
You were dealing with sleep deprivation, calorie deprivation, like all those things. So it enhances every aspect of, you know, this process of breaking, which I know, like you said, it's done differently now, but you know,
it still happens. Yeah. So yes, it's smarter, very smart now. Like, you know, this is not, you know, specifically when I went through, we were calorically deprived and we were sleep deprived for a long time. And then they started getting us more sleep. But by that time you're trying to catch up. You can never catch up, you know, kind of deal. The same with food, like you can never catch up to that. But those key things or something that's tough and you're having to do it and you want to be there. That's the biggest thing is everyone wants to be there. Right. And I think that part of our walk with Christ is we want to be there. We want to be at the graduation. We want to be the after photo. We want to be on the other side of whatever chasm or mountain you're facing, right? But you have to get through it, right? You're going to break while you're going through it. And I think that's you know, all the guys that quit, right? That, you know, so guys that quit, I want to say this right. Guys that quit, I have no empathy for when they quit, right? I don't dislike them as a person at all. It's not for everyone. Like, I understand that part of it. When people fail things or don't meet standard, I have a little bit more empathy for them because they didn't quit, right? And I think that that's a huge aspect of this breaking process is there were so many times, and I know I've talked about this before, and I would argue this with any course, but quit creeps into you. It does throughout the course, 100%. You start asking yourself, do I really want to be here? Is this worth it? You know, all these things, because you have an idea of what's on the other side, but you don't really know.
All I'm thinking of as you're saying these things is quit creeps is how that correlates to a marriage.
Absolutely.
You know, it's just like, what's this narrative that you're speaking to yourself, right? Yeah. It creeps up on you over time, right? Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Is this worth it?
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, and you just like constantly feeding yourself like this aspect of, I'd be better off somewhere else. Like, I just need, like, if I quit this, like, I'll be fine. This is going to be better. Like,
I'll give a great example. So for me personally, right? So we, during my course, there was a point where we had to do, it started probably noonish, I'm assuming, just based on, you know, time of day, you know, where the sun was, right? And they had us all line up on this road, like dirt road or improved road. And they gave us the instructions, like, you're going to take your ruck, put it on, individual event, no talking, and you're going to go that way, but pointed in a direction until a cadre grabs you and pulls you out, right? That would be the end point. So we saw I was walking, rucking into the night, like saw the like skyline lights of El Paso, all these things, and never saw, like I'd pass a dude every now and then, right? But didn't see anyone. I was by myself. All of us were just kind of, at first you start out together, but then some guys are slower, some guys are faster. So there's a disparity, right? Some guys have to stop to do something, whatever it is. But it was a timed event and it was unknown distances and it was just go, right? Just walk that way. And like during that time, I remember kind of beat bopping along like at first.
Did you say beat bopping?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just at first, just kind of like, this is, here's my task.
Yeah.
Right? No questions asked. I want to be here. I want the other side of this.
You're resolved to reach the end.
Yeah. So no questions asked. You can tell me to do anything. I'm going to do it right now. Right. And so I start going down the road and then pass a guy, after an hour or whatever, right? Just randomly would pass dudes.
Yeah.
It got darker and darker and darker, moving along. And I didn't stop. Because I didn't stop, not because I didn't want to, right? I wanted to stop. I didn't stop because I didn't know the time standard, right? Mm-hmm. And so I knew, like, I just need to go, right? That's like this urgency of just needing to go.
Yeah.
And I remember moving and my feet inside my boots, right? My feet were like slipping in my boots. If none of you have ever experienced anything like this, it scared me, right? Not because, my feet were going to come out of my boots or anything like that, but I in my head, my feet were in my boots slipping because of blood. And so I didn't feel pain. So I was just going to keep going, right? I think I probably retied and retightened my ruck because it kind of loosens up during that time, retied my boots. I didn't want to take them off though, because I was like, I don't want to see what's inside. There's blood, right? And I knew if I saw it that I'd start questioning my existence of being right there in the middle of nowhere at this time. I would just start questioning everything. Is it worth it? Should I keep going? All these things, right? Yeah.
You were kind of at that point knew that if you saw that, it would be an excuse.
Exactly. It'd have been an excuse. 100%.
Justifiable, right?
I'm injured, whatever, right? 100% been an excuse. So I just let them slip, right? And I remember, I still don't know to this day how many miles that was. That's part of it. I know what we do now for the candidates that are going through now, but then I still don't know with the mileage. So we're moving. I'm moving down. It's dark and, I don't know how long we were rucking for. Just keeps going. And then I get to this, it's just dark, right? And as I'm going, all of a sudden a cadre comes out of the brush on the side of the road and whispers because he doesn't want anyone else hearing if anyone's behind me, close to me. And he's like, hey, over here. And so I go over there and he writes my name down and writes my time. Doesn't say a word to me other than that. Writes my name, writes my time down. Then I kind of move. There's a van there. There wasn't many of us left at this point. There's a van right there. 2 other guys had finished before me. They were sitting down in the dirt, eating. Right. And then he comes over to me and he's like, hey, it's really cold. I know you don't know that yet because you guys have been moving all night, but it's really cold. So get in your ruck, get your jacket out. And he's like, change your socks out and sit down and grab your MRE, right? Whatever's in your ruck. Just, you can eat, rest, hydrate, all the bits, right? Yes, sir. So then this is the moment, right? I put my ruck down, sit down, and I can start feeling that it's cold. So I, grab a jacket, whatever I had. We had very little things to keep us warm. So I'm grabbing all that stuff to help keep me warm. And then I turn my headlamp on and I'm like, all right, I'm going to change my socks out, But this is, I don't want to take my boots off. I still don't feel any pain. I do not want to take my boots off. I'm I'm legitimately nervous on what I'm going to see. And so, and I'm under a red lamp, right? So that's kind of just with my red light, right? I'm using red light because it's dark. So I take my boot off, my right foot, take it off, take my sock off slowly. And I'm like gingerly, because I'm like just waiting to see like skin, right? Not on my foot, not where it should be. So I slowly take off that sock and I look and there's nothing. And I'm like inspecting my right foot and I don't see anything. So I throw a little bit of powder on there to dry it off. Now, like, to make sure it's not going to slip anymore, put brand new sock on, put my boot back on, lace it up, good. Then left foot. And that's when I was like a little bit hopeful, but at the same time, I'm like, this could be it. Because in selection, the one of the main things that I've seen where guys mentally quit on themselves is their feet. And I've seen it's been bad. Like I've seen like a layer of skin come off the ball of someone's foot, right? Like literally just like the medic kind of like puts it back there and kind of glues it together. So, because he's like, I want to keep going, right? So he just kind of puts it and glues it back together. It's just going to come off. Everyone knows it, but, it gives him something, right? So I've seen that. I've seen some like horrible looking feet, and that's all I kept thinking about. Like, I'm going to take this boot off and here we go, right? It's going to be bad. So I take that boot off. Again, gingerly undoing my sock, like getting my sock off under the red lamp. Hard to see, really. And I mean, like, how like you take your sock off inside out? That's what I was doing. And like slowly, finally it gets all the way off. And I look at my foot and I don't see any red. And I'm like, I'm inspecting it. Like, I know this might sound nasty. I don't care. Like, this is during selection.
It's the breaking process.
This is nothing, right? So I'm like holding my foot and I'm like rubbing it, like not rubbing my foot to feel good, but like, what happened, right? Why were my feet slipping this whole time? Like I felt like you could feel liquid, right? It was like, I thought, so I'm rubbing, nothing. Between my toes, nothing. My toes at this time were numb because we rucked everywhere. So the little physical things happen to you when your body doing that. So anyway, I'm going through it and it was fine. And I changed my boot, changed my sock, put my new boot on, or not my new boot, put my boots back on, and I was fine. But I remember in that moment thinking like, I want to be here so bad, and I'm going to have to make this decision right now. Right? That ruck was hard. It was difficult. It was very difficult. I wasn't physically breaking down. It was mentally for me at that point. And it was very difficult. It was difficult because I never stopped moving, but was difficult about it because I was like, when I get to the end, like what's going to happen to me? Yeah.
Right? You had already like had a whole potential.
I did this whole narrative in my head, and that's what's so interesting to me. And of guys that quit, I don't have that empathy for because of that, right? Like I built this narrative up in my head, but I had to see it through, not the course, the narrative, right? The course I had said from the very beginning, like my resolve was they're going to have to remove me like from a standard, or they're going to have to take me out on a stretcher. Like I'm not going to say the words, right? It's not going to happen. But I remember that narrative in my head, and I had to get through that narrative. And it's so true, right? I mean, equate this to your marriage.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I feel like you went through that in that selection course, and I went through that when we walked through our stuff.
Yeah.
Like it was a completely different thing, but it was just like the narrative and having that aspect of like, I'm either going to get removed because of this or by this, but but I'm not going to quit. Even having to, do things I didn't want to have to do in the middle of that process.
Like this, it's when you're going through a breaking period, your narratives are going to change so fast. I remember the relief of seeing nothing wrong with my feet. Like that full relief. And in that moment, I was like, I can go another day. Right. So don't be like, I'd love to say like in that moment, I was like,
I'm going to make it.
I can go another X amount of days and I'm going to be all right. Like I'll make it. And there's no way I couldn't do that. There was guys that had experienced selection courses in my course that weren't doing that. Right. All of us had the same mentality of we're going to be taken out on a stretcher, but we weren't saying we'll be here this weekend. Yeah. We were saying, I looked at that and that was a win. Yeah. That my feet were good. And so I was like, I can be here tomorrow.
But I love that both of the lessons in there is the day to day, like focusing in on your day, like that what's before you, especially if you're struggling in your marriage, right? It's like people get caught up in, well, in 5 years from now, what am I going to do? And like, until you're in a place of more healing, doing that is actually harming you, right? Because then you want to come up with every possible scenario of what might happen in the next 5 years. And then you can't take the win in just the moment, right? You can't just say like, I made it through today. Yeah. Or, okay, this gives me what I need and I can make it through tomorrow or the next hour or whatever. And like, you need that kind of mental capacity, that strength, that faith in the middle of the most difficult time of your life.
Absolutely. And I know I've talked about selection before. I don't know. Have I talked about like when the most people quit? Did I bring that up? I know I've talked about it in live.
Yeah. I don't think that you've talked about it on here.
So,
but it does get like, for those of you, if we ever repeat ourselves, I just want you to know, like, it gets really hard to keep track of
all the things we
150 some episodes.
And also we're like go to speaking events and coach and all these different things.
So sometimes those areas blend together.
But I don't think I've talked about it here, but it's part of this breaking process and your choice of going through it, right? So in my course, and this is what I see in all courses, but it's just interesting because I remember vividly in my course when people would quit. It's not during the task, because during the task, it's like mindless, right? You're just doing something. Right. So you're just like, I'm moving. If I just keep moving, right? The cadre's yelling at me to do more push-ups. I just keep trying, like it's fine. Even though there's people that quit during those times, of course, too. Yeah. It gets too hard for them and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. But when I saw that most people quit and what the data shows now currently still is in the mornings. In the mornings when now they get a little bit more sleep, but in the mornings when it's time to wake up. Right. That's when I've seen the most people quit. And what's weird about that is you would think like, I just woke up. Like
nothing's even happened yet to like defeat you yet for the day.
Yeah, exactly. But this is why it goes into the breaking process too, because you have a choice. You always have choices. People always say like, oh, I had no choice. You absolutely do have a choice in any aspect of what's going on. So I remember waking up on the couple hours of sleep, or so we would get at a certain time, right? I remember waking up and I would have to sleep with I'll explain how I'd have to sleep when it was time to sleep. I had to sleep with my feet elevated. So the swelling could be gone down, right? Because like from my knee down would be swollen. I wasn't the only one. This is not unique. All of us, I think, in my course slept with our feet in the air. Like it was just something to like, the medics were even telling us like, elevate your feet, hang your back, whatever. So I remember waking up and, my eyes hurt, opening my eyes, my neck hurt, my head hurt. I mean, your hair hurts, like everything hurts, right? Shoulders are hurting. Hands are always kind of swollen. Right. And they hurt when you have to grab something, when you have to like move your hands, joints are hurting. You get the point, right? Like from head to toe, every single thing hurt. There was nothing that felt good, right? At all. And so I would get up and I would like start getting dressed as fast as I could for the day. Then we'd have to run outside and figure out what was going to happen to us that day, right? We didn't know. The guys that quit, they hurt the same. There was no different hurt, right? There was no different hurt. You know, my class started with 70 plus odd dudes and 13 of us made it, right? There was those 13 that made it hurt the same. None of those guys, none of the 13 that made it walked out like whole. Mm-hmm. None of us walked out whole. We were all broken. And everyone hurts the same way. And so I would get up and I'd see my boots and I'd put my boots on, get dressed and go as fast as I could. And that's what we did. But then there's the other guys, they would inch to the edge of their bed. Same thing. Hurt. Eyes hurt to open. Probably starving. I woke up starving. Like my stomach's like eating itself when I woke up. And I wasn't the only one. It wasn't unique, right? This is dude next to me, same way. And we can't wait to get food. Like, but when was that going to happen? Didn't know. You know, so it was just like, this is the process. Scooting the edge of the bed, the other guy, he looks down his boots and then he decides to put on his flip-flops, the shower shoes or whatever. And then he, you know, shuffles over to a cadre and quits. Why? Like what? Why him and not the 13 of us? Like what was it? It's very simple. The 13 of us knew that we all were in pain. A lot. They knew it. We knew it. And we chose to keep going through the process. Like we chose, like this pain is temporary. It's fine. We'll get past it. We have to go out and do what we got to do, whatever it is, right? I have to go out and meet that cadre, and then they're going to yell at us, tell us what's next. Probably didn't mean a time hack. Probably didn't put our shirt on right, whatever it may be, right? But we knew that was going to happen, so it didn't matter. The only thing that mattered is we knew we had to get from point A, and we had to climb over the mountain to get to point B. That was it. Whatever happened between A and B, in our 13 minds, right? And the 13 of us that made it, whatever happened from A to B did not matter. It was insignificant. It was something that was going to be a blimp on the radar. Like it did not matter. All we knew is we had to do whatever we had to do to get to B. Yeah. Period. Right? In your marriage, are you willing to do that? That's really what it comes down to. Your problems in your marriage, I hate to tell you this. I'm going to break the news to you right now. Your problems in your marriage are not unique. They're not unique by any means. We thought our story was unique. It's not. And that's horrible. Yeah. Like I wish our story was unique.
Yeah, we wish there were not so many that could relate.
Yeah. I wish it was daily for a while that I would hear same story as you, man. Like same story, different ending, same story, you know? What we go through individually is unique, but the problem set is not. Yeah. Right? Name it. Right now you're listening to this, whatever's going on in your marriage.
Like, but you don't know he, and you don't know she, and you don't know. And it's like, we may not know, but your story, your problems.
It's not unique.
I mean, unfortunately, it is this aspect of so many marriages struggling in the same areas.
And I don't mean that to sound cold.
Right, because it's hard.
Now go back to what I was saying. This is why I'm saying this, is because the guy to my left and me and the guy to my right, when all three of us had to wake up, we all felt the same way. But the guy to my left put on his shower shoes or flip-flops or whatever and shuffled with his head down because he didn't want everyone to know. So he was ashamed of it, shuffled to a cadre and quit. And then we never see him again. We were all hurting. Yeah. Every single one of us was hurting. There was a dude that went through my course and he ended up blowing out his knee the first week. And guess what? He didn't quit.
I don't know how that's even possible.
He's one of the toughest dudes I know. He didn't quit. He was one of the 13 of us that made it. His knee looked horrible. His ACL was gone. Like, it looked horrible. It looked like a grapefruit everywhere he went.
But this just shows you the resolve that is necessary in the breaking.
Absolutely.
Because it's like, if you don't keep an eye on that B point, as you said, right? Like the end result, the end goal, our ultimate like human desire is going to be to quit when things are tough.
Yeah.
You know, like it's we want to not be broken. Like everything within us cries out to avoid any level of discomfort or pain, or like our bodies are literally designed that way. Yeah. Right. And so, but this resolve, this aspect of being able to say there is something greater that we're going towards, it helps you to move through the pain.
And it's greater than yourself. So I didn't do what I did to like get on the other side and then to walk around and say, you know, I made it.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't do that. That wasn't the purpose behind it. Right. The purpose behind it, I wanted more for myself in my career. I knew I don't get paid more than someone that does something different.
Yeah.
You know, I get to do a lot of different things and make a dent and like actual change, right, on some things we do. And I've got to experience a lot of things, but it was because I wanted to combat something at a higher level than just the normal.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I wanted to do. All the guys I was with, none of them were glory hounds.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't get that far. And if you got that far, you wouldn't get picked.
Right.
Right. You wouldn't get picked because those attributes come out when you're broken. Like all your core that you try to hide from people, it all comes out. Those 13 guys, they know me. Like they know me to my core. They've seen me at my worst. They've seen me at my best. They know who I am, and vice versa. Like in fact, I just saw a couple of my classmates a couple of weeks ago, and it's like you never have even if I don't talk to them for, you know, X amount of time, it's just like you pick up right where you left off.
Yeah.
We know each other. Like we've seen the worst and we've seen the best out of what we've done, right? And none of us were seeking glory. And if you think about that, like if you're in pain and that's what you're trying to seek, I would argue you're never going to get there. Right? This breaking process isn't about that. Like God breaks you and wants to break all these things off you. It's to humble you and to realize I have to lean on him.
Right.
Right. And not quit and just keep going. Like what is it? Paul's like, finish the race.
Yeah.
Right. Like you just have to keep going. You know, your marriage might be struggling right now. And if it's just to get to B and to say like, you know, we have a good marriage, you're missing out on like this core foundation of it where you get to B and your marriage is better than you could ever imagine. God gets all the glory. And then your marriage is shining to everyone else. It's so much bigger than yourself, right? Me going through selection, getting the other side, getting on the team, getting to do what I was going to do, that's so much bigger than me. And it's the coolest thing to experience. And it's awesome. It's awesome to see those things and know the things we've done and see the you know, second and third effect of actions that we've taken and all those things. It's amazing to see that. You don't think about that when you're going through. You just know I want to go do something that's bigger than me. And then in your marriage, like you shouldn't be thinking about all the cool things. You should just be thinking like, I'm going to get to do something that's bigger than me. And it's going to be amazing. And you get through this breaking point to the other side, and then you see your marriage, you see other people coming to you, I want what you have. How did you do this? It's like, one, God, right?
Yeah.
And then two, this and this and this. And this is how you do it. But you have to be willing to be humbled, and you have to be willing to be broken, right? It's, when I got done with selection, Lisa I looked horrible.
Yeah.
Looked horrible. And I remember talking to my dad, my dad told me the story. So he was talking to another guy that had been on the team for, decades. He was like one of the first classes. My dad knew him. And he had heard a little bit about what I went through, right? And you can relay stories all you want. It's until you go through it, it's hard to imagine, But I remember we were talking one day, and he's like, yeah, I asked my friend, like, why do they make him do these things? And his friend saying this, I thought was like so good. And this relates directly into what we're talking about being broken, going through your marriage, getting to the other side. And then we said breaking's constant, right? There's always going to be something, right? Maybe not to the extreme, but it'll always be something that you have to give up and break.
Because we ain't going to reach perfection until heaven.
So he told my dad, he goes, it's because they can be on this side of a mountain, and their task or their mission says they have to go on the other side of that mountain and then do something. And none of them on that unit is going to question if they can do it or not. That was it. Everything we went through. I was like, that's summed up so well, because I can tell you right now, anything that's ever come down to us as a task to go complete, nobody in the room has ever said, we're not going to be able to do this. It doesn't matter if it's a 6-man fire team, a 2-man fire, whatever it was, no one in the room ever was like, we can't do this. So
that, I guess the question that it brings to me then, because we've talked about this resolve that you have, this resounding characteristic that you feel enables every person who is in that room to look at the mountain and say, like, I'll get to the other side. If you could put, a name to that particular aspect that allows you guys to have that perspective, have you thought that through, or what does that look like? Or is there a word that you have?
No, there's not a word that I have, or it's experience. It's not, I'll say this, it's not unrealistic expectations, right? So everyone knows in that room, they know how big the mountain is. They know how long the walk's going to be. They know how heavy the equipment's going to be. They know on the other side, they know it's going to be tough. They know, whatever the mission is, like, they know it's not ignorance, and it's not disillusion of thinking like we can conquer anything. There's nothing like that behind it. But it is this, and what it really comes down to is we've experienced what we've experienced, so we know we could do whatever it takes to do what it is, and we're not going to compromise anything to get it done. That's really what it comes down to, right? So you're not going to compromise. Like, there's your thing, right? So your marriage, your breaking point, you're pushing forward, you're seeking God, all those things. Along the way, there's compromise that pops up all over the place. All over. Excuse, right? My excuse on that one event. There was many events, but one evolution, my excuse could have been my feet.
Right. And no one would have blamed you.
No. If I took that boot off and there was blood everywhere, no one would have said a word. I would have been a med drop or whatever, right? No one would have said a word. I would have hated it, every minute of it, right? Maybe in that moment I got this reprieve of like, oh, I get a hot meal. a hot shower, a nice warm bed.
But that's so good too, right? Because that's the reality of where compromise becomes appealing.
Yeah.
Is it does have this aspect of some sort of pleasure,
comfort
on the other side. It's temporary, but often we will forfeit our getting through for temporary pleasure, for temporary
and I'll say
comfort.
This, in the moment, you're not weighing temporary.
Right.
Like that's not even on the scale. It's not like
you're like, oh, maybe right now this would be fun, but in the end.
Yeah, but if you don't have the focus and resolve at the beginning, I think you could pick up resolve as you go through. But if you don't have that focus of, I want my marriage to work. Like I want it to work. This is scary. I want God to break me.
Oof.
Like I want that, because the other side of that, it's gotta be better than where I'm at.
Yeah.
Like the other side of this has to be better than where I'm at. So I want God to break me. I want to fight for my marriage, and all those things. Those aren't easy things to ask for and or do.
No.
Right? Take it back to my job. I wanted to get on this team. I had an inkling of what it took to go through that one phase. But I didn't realize till I got to the other end that there's so many other times where I've had to do the same thing mentally so I can still be in the fight. Right? Like the breaking process never stops. There's an old adage in this world, and it's selection never ends. Right? And the meaning behind that is I have to not necessarily prove myself to the men around me, right? Because they're with me, but I have to have the capability to do whatever it takes with whatever comes our way. Right? And so selection never stops. If I start slipping and I can't do X and X, then I can't be with the team. Then I have to be benched.
Then that applies exactly to your marriage. Like then your marriage is compromised, right? Like if you start slipping from the standard, if you start stepping out of, selection never stops, right? But that same aspect is in your marriage, right? If you decide to compromise, right? Even in things like, well, I'm like, she knows me, he knows me, like you stop communicating. It's a compromise, right? In the middle of your marriage. And then eventually that ends up leading somewhere. Like every time you compromise, you leave an open door for the enemy to come in and destroy. Like it's just
absolutely
like the standards that you guys have in your selection course is for a purpose. Right? It is to have this group of people that can come together and say, we're going to do what it takes to get over the mountain, right? We're going to take our experiences. We're going to take all of this knowledge and, this breaking process that we've gone through, and we're going to utilize it. And in our marriage, it's the same thing. It's the same thing of just allowing all those experiences, all the breaking, all of that stuff to allow you guys to move forward, not to compromise what God has placed before you, and to have standards to attain to, right? Like we talk often about standards that we have in our marriage, not because we're trying to make you feel guilty about your life or because we want you to wake up. Yeah. Because we want you to have a marriage that you can look at and say like, this is better than I ever anticipated marriage could be. Like we're growing, we're moving towards where we ultimately want to be together, and we are communicating and loving each other, and we're for each other, and we want everyone to have that. But we also have standards that we have in place, and we don't want to compromise in those things because we unequivocally know the damage that happens when you let down the standards. And I know you've experienced that too. If standards are lowered, right, then you allow a caliber of people to come into a program that you don't want there, because then they're not looking at the mountain in the same way. I don't know. It's very good. Like I just think there's so many aspects of your job that you when you look at it in that perspective of the relationships in your life, it's huge.
Well, it's interesting because you see guys that you can look them. There's tons of people with YouTube channels and different, Instagram, avenues, all those things of guys that were prior, military, tier operators, right? And they're all successful in a certain avenue of life. Right. And I don't know how their normal life is. Right. There's a lot of other factors that go into that. But overall, you see a lot of guys get successful after. Right. And I think that that's because of everything that you've gone through to be selected to get there. It's attributes that bleed into all aspects of your life. Every single one of them. I'm not saying you have to go through selection to have that. But there's a common denominator with guys that get selected and move on because they apply that same mentality to everything. All my experiences that we've had in our marriage, like all of them, from 2011, everything, right? Coming back into our marriage, rebuilding our marriage, all these things, my walk with Christ, like everything, all those experiences have prepared me for whatever mountain is next, because there will be one. And that's the tough part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's always a mountain.
Yeah.
But you have to use everything that you've gained to know that you can go over that mountain.
Yeah.
Right. And I couldn't have done any of this without God, for real. I remember even on that ruck, praying, right? I remember those things, and I didn't even have the strong relationship that I have now with Christ.
Yeah.
But I remember praying, just give me strength, over and over again. But all those experiences, they're going to prepare me for whatever mountain is next. And I don't know what mountain's next. We don't know. We don't know what that mountain looks like. We don't know what it could be. The only thing we know is that if we use the knowledge we have, the experiences we've had, the mountains we've overcome before, our walk with God, and we stay uncompromised, we know we can go on the other side of that mountain.
Yeah, because of who we serve, over and over. And I think that's, it's that hope, it's that faith, it's that trust that you want to develop in the middle of the breaking. And we'll never pretend to you that the breaking is not awful and that compromise isn't easy. But we can also attest to how God moves in the breaking and how he's a great healer. And, he can take those things, those experiences, all of that, and he can do something with it. I mean, it's pretty amazing how God moves. Yeah. So challenge for the week.
I don't know.
To me, I think it is looking at your marriage and saying, is there an area that I'm compromising?
Yeah.
And, that I'm allowing there to be that resolve laid aside, right? Mm-hmm. And really, really taking a good hard look. We're always encouraging you to look at yourself, because you can't change your spouse.
Yeah.
But you can do what God calls you to do. And if there's an area that you are compromising in your thoughts, your emotions, your life, your actions, you need to assess that and you need to close that door.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. If you guys have not subscribed to YouTube, we want to encourage you to do so. Yet again, we're just always encouraged by each of you that leaves reviews and reaches out to us. We love y'all. We'll see you next week.